This is the Monday, June 12th, 2023 meeting of the City of Palm Springs Architectural Review Committee. Planning Director, please take roll call.
Good afternoon, everyone. Steve Poline,
Here.
John McCoy,
Here.
Tom Dosey,
Here.
Vice Chair Rotman,
Here.
and Chair Jakeway.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Could we have a staff report, please, on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was posted for public access on the City Hall Bulletin, City Council Chamber Bulletin Board on Wednesday, June 7th, in accordance with stated policies.
Thank you. Does anybody in the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Seeing no, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept?
Steve, second?
I'll second.
Second by Robert. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time that that item is presented. If you want to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker shall have 3 minutes. We have none in the audience. Do we have any in the waiting room?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to now proceed to the minutes of the May 15th, 2023 meeting. Does anybody on the committee have any changes or revisions to the minutes? I'll note that I was not at that meeting, so I will be not voting on this item.
Neither was up.
Neither was I.
Do we have a quorum to vote on it with 3 people left?
3 of you were not at that meeting,
2 were not.
2 were not, 3 were.
so we still have 3. So you still have a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion? Well, first of all, any revisions to those minutes? Nope. Okay, do we have a motion from one of you 3 to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
Second.
Second by John McCoy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the agenda. Item number 1 is, number 2, unfinished business. Number 2A, Richard Meany for a major architectural application to construct a 6,531 square foot single-family residence on a hillside parcel located on Lot 21, 2424 Morning Vista Drive within the Desert Palisades specific plan area. Could we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. The applicant is proposing a 6,500 square foot home within the Desert Palisades specific plan. Lot 21 is located within, gotta get used to this. Highlighted area right here. It's on an irregular shaped lot. In the Desert Palisades specific plan. So we got the site plan on the left-hand side. Nothing much has changed with that site plan since the last time it's come to ARC. And their proposed roof plan, which also has not changed. They are proposing solar, and they're showing it in the middle down this right here. So before we proceed, the proposed single-family home does comply with the design standards and the development standards of the Desert Palisades specific plan. Last time we spoke, ARC had discussed their concerns with the roof detail of this project, the fascia, and the screening of the vents and ducts, as well as access to the mechanical equipment, which was originally located under the residence. The applicant has addressed those issues. First, they have addressed the access to the mechanical equipment by moving the mechanical equipment to the west elevation. As you can see in this elevation, the one at the bottom, the mechanical equipment is now located towards along the west elevation and has access via this the patio in the rear. Go back. The mechanical equipment is sufficiently screened from public right-of-way. And just to go forward actually, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back. They are proposing this pathway that runs along the west elevation, closer to the property line, to get to the mechanical equipment. Upon talking to the applicant, and to limit disturbance to the site and keep it as natural as possible, they are taking that walkway and pushing it closer. They're agreeable to taking the walkway and pushing it closer to the residents. To the residents. The fascia detail on the bottom right-hand side has been updated as well. Originally, they were proposing a concrete roof, and they had changed it to wood. The top is going to be spray foam, the tan spray foam, and stucco. Actually, not stucco, I apologize. They are proposing to make this a smooth stucco right here, this part that's visible to the public, so it doesn't show the spray foam material. The colors and materials have not changed. These are the elevations that they've provided. You can see the mechanical equipment is located behind this wall right here and not visible. So, the applicant is also applying for an administrative minor modification application for the overheight increase. The height does increase by 2 feet, as mentioned in the staff report. The applicant is available to speak on the issues of access to the storage room that is located under the house, and the location, and is looking for recommendations as far as the access for the pool guy, and that grade difference issue. So with that, the staff does recommend approval subject to conditions, and the applicant is available via Zoom.
Thank you, Alex. Does anybody on the committee have questions of staff? Seeing none, this is the time that the applicant has to present their project to us. I know you've got them somehow electronically available to us. The applicant, please identify yourself, and you have 10 minutes to make a presentation.
Hello. Hi, hi, this is Jorge. Well, we have the 3D model where it actually shows a little bit of how are we accessing the storage room that we have below. We always, since we started the design of this house, we fell in love with the dry river that is located there, and we wanted to always keep as intact as possible instead of creating platforms, or we wanted to keep the nature of the site very intact. So we designed this house that way, so that in the center we have we keep all the dry river intact, and that's the main concept of the house. So in this case right now, when we talk about the access for the pool guy to get to that, it takes us to a little bit of steps, but we see it as something that we wanted to keep it as organic as possible. Of course, we want it to be functional, but if you can see here on the screen, you can see that it will be just generate little steps through the okay, and then to access and can we show a section of the, hold on, and here's the section where it shows on the lower part. Can you show here, please? Oh no, hold on. Okay, it's not seeing. We're sharing screen. Yeah, here's where we have 7 foot clear to for a door to access the storage room below. I know on the grading it shows some numbers that are a little bit off on the grading, but we can correct those from the civil engineer. Okay, so but basically it's an area that you will be accessing from the left-hand side here on the screen where you see it. you'll be accessing from there and to that little storage that we have below. It's a space that was created originally to put the mechanical. We took it out, but we saw that we still need to structure the house, so we kept it as a storage, but it's not the main storage of the house. We have storage on the garage, so it'll be for minor cleaning equipment for the landscape. Okay, so on the solar, there were some comments on the solar also. We're gonna do a skirt to be built after the application of the solar panels. They will be flat on the roof, on the fascia. There was another comment also on the fascia. The fascia will have an overhang. It's an overhang of 12 inches thick. That is composed by 2x8 wood members, joist and fascia. And it will be finished with a smooth stucco plaster, the Labra, the Silverado color, light tan, and it will be matched with the spray foam also. The spray foam will be only, if you see here, the spray foam, it's on the horizontal parts, so you will be only seeing it from the sky. So the areas that you see from the streets are covered with the smooth stucco plaster over a dense glass sheeting. With the Silverado color, okay? So we also reference the roof vents. We use per city standards for the roof vents so that you cannot see it from the neighbors above. Also, we reference the stair details. I don't know if you can show the stair details. The stair detail for the pool guy, and it's gonna have the pool server access has been addressed by adding a walkway path, and it's made out of concrete steps supported by a steel beam and tempered clear glass guardrails, so you cannot see it that much, and you can see there. That's the detail for that area. Also, there were some comments about the underground ducting that we had proposed at the first attempt, but we designed it when we changed the roof to be wood. We were able to use all the HVAC ducting in the ceiling in between the joist and there is only a little bit area. All those red areas that you see there. They're all the only two areas that are going to be exposed ductwork that will be cladding aesthetically with brick metal matching the overall exposed steel structure color. These are those two areas that you see there, and they're below the house. So the rest, it's all hidden, so you will never see any. And that'll be all for now. I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Jorge. Does anybody in the committee have questions for the applicant? Robert?
Yeah, just a question. The storage room that's below the house, you have it accessed, I'm trying to figure out what direction, on the north side. And I'm just wondering why you didn't have the door on the south side where it seems like you would have more headroom. Because
no, actually, the headroom that we have it on the west. That's north is here, not south. We're accessing from the. You see here, we don't have enough access. From there, if you're looking, it's going up.
Okay.
So the best to get is from the other side.
But you would still need to enter that area from the dry creek, right? And you have to
Yes.
walk all the way around. And
Yes.
And if I'm reading your plans correctly, your door is actually under the deck, between the pool and the house.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the way you're gonna walk is from here.
Yeah.
Here, on the back of where the kitchen is.
Oh, you're
From
coming
that
from
side.
the other side. Okay.
Uh-huh. You cannot access from the center because but the key. I don't know if you're asking for that area, because there you don't have space, you see?
Got it. Okay, I
You
understand
only
now,
have-
thank you.
And we wanted that to be floating, so all the nature, the fauna, flora, it keep intact. One.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Tom?
No.
Josie?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions on sheet R05, the rendering sheet. It shows the back deck area along with the pool. And like in your model here, the pool is not showing, but I guess my question is, what is the finish on the pool retaining wall enclosure wall? that
Oh,
wraps around?
those are the mini pebble stone. It's the, ¿cómo se llama? What's the brand? The Stonescape is the brand. Stonescape. Yeah, it's mini pebble stone.
And that's on the exterior wall. It's not the
Yeah,
finish for the
exterior
inside of
and
the
on
pool.
Here. Yeah, on the interior and on the exterior. You see here on number 2. Can you
Yes.
zoom on that one?
So
That
that
is-
would be inside the pool, so they're going to use that same finish on the outside as well?
Yeah, we've done it on outside and inside in other desert location, and we're perfectly fine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I'm sure you've researched the deck material, the Mojave thermal spruce, and it's adaptable for the desert conditions?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, the most spruce. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Thank you, Tom. John, any questions or comments? Steve?
Nope.
I have a comment, Jorge. You're going to a lot of trouble to create a storage room that even you admit probably won't be used much. Why not just make it a dead space, like you've got the dead space that sits below the garage? It would look the same, it would still have the house on a pedestal, but then you've got total freedom to manipulate the grades through there however you would want to. Because I think to be able to get anything into that storage room is a real trek to get down there from the house.
Yeah.
And that's just a comment, I don't, you know.
Yeah, I think we can talk with Tim, the client, on that. And he kind of liked the idea of having like extra space, but mainly for maintenance of that areas, no? Like landscape or little equipment. But yeah, I can talk to Tim on that and see what he.
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's yeah.
And then on your,
I never liked it to begin with. So.
okay,
We could just fill it out and you convince Tim and that's it.
Right, yeah, I'll make it go away.
on the parapet detail, I'm glad to hear that you're gonna have plaster on that short retaining wall that's up on the roof, or not retaining wall, that short parapet wall. But I'd also like to see on the edge of the overhang, where the foam roof meets the plaster, there needs to be some sort of a metal or wood or
Yeah.
some sort of something to capture the end of of the foam so that we do not see this foam above the plaster on the outside
Yeah.
view.
But it can, yeah, you mean on where it shows drape cap there? That corner?
Yep,
Yeah, maybe we could do a custom detail, but we want the water to continue. Because yeah, we can study that on how to make it. I want as thin as possible. We want it, but of course it needs to, we don't want to see the foam from the facade. So
right.
maybe an L shape, a T shape drip cap or something like that from Fry Reglet, or I don't know. We'll find out.
That's exactly what it'd be, some sort of metal, so you get a nice little trim finish.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, how is the roof drained? Are there roof drains? Is it scuppers? Where does the water
drains.
go?
Yeah, pues me lo techos. Yeah, there are roof drains. Yeah, with a 2-inch overflow. Thunderbird drains. Yeah, you can see it there. Hold on. Can you zoom? Yeah, we're gonna zoom in. No, they're not on that plan. We already did the design and everything, the engineerings, but yeah, they're on the roof.
So,
The roof is-
so the roof, you'll be collecting the water and drains, but then on that, probably about a 4-foot wide parapet or soffit, will that water then be running over the face of the soffit?
No, they run through pipes inside the house, and you go. There you go. We got it here. You see all those crosses are the slopes, and it shows with dotted lines where they go down. You see there, like here, boom, and then go down.
What I'm talking about is not in the main body of the roof, but on the edges.
On the edges. Yeah, they're just gonna.
Yeah,
We don't
down-
have a. Yeah, they're just. It's just 4 feet of overhang that will be sloping like that. Yeah, we don't have any gutters or anything. If that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate not having the gutters, but on the other hand, I think it's problematic because everything is so filthy dirty here in the desert. After the first rain, all of the dirt that's sitting on that roof is just gonna run across the fascia, and it's gonna become a real maintenance issue. Okay, that's just a comment.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, this is the point where if anybody from the public would like to comment on this, this particular item, they may. Is there anybody that wants to make some comments?
And Mr. Chair, just for the benefit of those in the waiting room, we would ask if you do want to comment on an item, if you just use the raise your hand feature and Zoom, that will allow us to identify that you would like to speak.
Thank you. Okay, we will conclude public comment, and obviously no need for rebuttal from the applicant, so we'll have a discussion amongst the committee. People's,
Thank you.
sure, thank you, Jorge. Comments or questions from the committee?
I guess it's more of a comment. I'm just thinking about the use of the Pebble Tech, if I'm understanding the material correctly, for the exposed outside wall of or the containment wall for the pool. And I'm just wondering if that wouldn't look better if they used, the board formed concrete or something, because they've used that elsewhere, it looks like on the facade of the structure. Again, I'm just not familiar with seeing that much exposed that's outside of water.
It's been my experience that when the Pebble Tech is out of the water, it cracks. It needs the moisture from the water for it to perform. So I would think that either just plaster to match the building, since it's not that visible of an element, or to be made out of the board form concrete. If they're gonna be doing a concrete wall anyway structurally.
Correct.
Let's just see what it looks like.
And that was the only comment.
I
I'm
have a-
sharing this pool. We did it with the same material on the outside. I don't know if I'm sharing it. I think it works perfectly fine.
I mean, I guess the difference is you see all those wonderful clouds filled with fog and moisture. And then here
Well,
in the,
that's
here in
in the
the
winter.
desert where it's 120 degrees, it's a slightly different environment, and that's just from experience here.
You're right.
Question I have, on the grading plan, there's a large retention area called out on the the top corner of the plan, but it's not shown at all on the landscape plan. Can you address that? I don't think we need to go over the discussion of that now, but I think it needs to be addressed in the final plan so that we can see exactly how that retention pond is finished and if there is any landscaping associated with it.
Sorry, but I didn't get it on which one which one is it here?
The retention pond is right above the kitchen. You can see it on the grading plan.
No,
Right there.
yeah, that one.
Yeah, we'll landscape it. It'll look nice.
But it's, yeah, it's a landscape.
And just as a kind of housekeeping comment. It drives me crazy when you have plans within the same set of drawings and they're oriented differently. And that's why it's hard to compare this grading plan to the landscaping plan, because they're kind of flipped from each other. So just a technical comment. Any other committee comments or questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a
Tom
motion
Dosey, yes.
for approval with the comments as stated for the architect to review.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Steve, second? And I would like to make sure in the comments it says that that parapet wall is plastered on the roof, not foam. But that was in our comments.
And you are making the recommendation for approve based on the findings in the staff report,
Yes.
Yes, with the additional comments.
with the additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jorge.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 3, new business. John Elliott, owner, for a major architectural application to construct a 5,064 square foot single-family residence on a hillside lot located on Lot 12 within the Desert Palisades specific plan area. Could we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Jackway. So this house is Lot 12, located in, as you say, Desert Palisades on Winter Sun Drive. It's on the portion of the development that is coming along. There are houses that are across the street and farther up the hill. So this little street is coming along with all kinds of interesting homes, and we're here to show you one today. We have a rendering of a proposed 5,064 square foot single-family house. You'll notice that it is at a higher elevation on the west side of the lot, and it terraces down the side of the street with the lower portion with stairs inside, and we'll show you that shortly in the floor plan. There's a site plan that shows how the house orients towards the street. There is the 7.5-foot no-build easement on the west side. Point that out along here. And then the south side and the east side faces a common area, so the no-build easement is not required on those portions of the lot. So the house, as you see, is oriented towards Winter Sun Drive. North is the upper portion, and then south is to the bottom of the slide with the pool and public areas towards the south with the views down valley. The unique features of this lot is that there is an existing waterway that runs through the lot, which causes some very unique conditions. You'll see the topo lines here. And in the Desert Palisade guidelines, it says that there cannot be mass grading, and they have to convey the water across the lot. So the project architect had to find a way to build the house on top of the waterway and not disturb it. When the first project came in, or iteration of this project, it did not quite work for us, and they have gone back and designed a water channel that will flow underneath the house. So there are 2 walls that form the foundation. It'll be a naturalized area where the water will convey across the lot, and to the east portion, there is also a pylon that will support the house at the northeast corner. There is a site floor plan in that's showing right now. There are some questions about some of the design elements. There are bedrooms that step down, terrace down the hillside. In the front elevation, you notice there was a architectural feature that runs along the front of the structure, and I'll flip back to that in a second, but that is glass, and the project architect will be able to describe how that affects the interior of the house. We have a roof plan showing the locations of potential solar panels on the roof. Once again, let me go back one slide. Sorry. We're not. It's been a while since we've been in this chamber, working the technical. So once again, the garage to the house is located off to the west and will not be visible from the street, so it does meet the standards of Desert Palisades in that sense. And the back button is not working. There's a grading plan that shows the location of the driveway. It'll be pavers that will come into the motor court and then into the garage itself. Once again, this shows the channel that runs underneath the house with other retaining basins on the north side of the property. Bear with me here. Right, back to the roof slide. And then another slide showing how the house will sit on top of the channel that runs under the house. There is a discussion about the location of mechanical equipment. If you look at this slide, mechanical equipment is located underneath in the channel. Looking at elevations, there's about a 7-foot clearance from the ground to the slab of the first floor of the house. So there should be clearance enough to get maintenance workers and circulation through the equipment. Pool equipment will be located in a pit that will be underneath the first floor deck. There is a door that is through the deck, and then also there's another access point when you come up the drainage channel. Moving on to sections, there are some site sections showing how the maximum height of the building is 15 feet, which is underneath the pillow or the maximum height of the guidelines in Desert Palisades. You'll notice here that there are this pylon that supports the front of the house on the northeast portion. There's materials that are provided. It'll be a stucco finish of the house, white stucco. And then this is the glass architectural feature that the project architect will be able to describe better than I can. In the packages, there's some rendering showing how the house will float. This is in this area here. This is the channel that flows underneath the house, and the house sits on top. There's series of opening sliding doors to provide indoor-outdoor living. And then another example of the landscaping and how the pool has an infinity edge on the south side of the property. Once again, this shows a section of the house, and it shows the mechanical equipment located underneath in the flow of the drainage. The landscape plan shows minimal landscaping, trees that are approved in the Desert Palisades guidelines, which are Palo Verdes and olive trees, and other various cactus and succulents. So, Chair, that concludes my report. The applicant is here, and we recommend approval.
Thank you. Does anybody on the committee have questions of the staff? John McCoy?
You mentioned the finish is white stucco. Is that a Palisades approved color?
There are white houses in Palisades now,
Okay.
and there's black houses and brown houses.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions of the staff? Tom Dosey?
Was there a landscape lighting plan submitted?
Yes, there is a lighting plan. Let me go back to it. It's combined with another plan.
Okay.
It's this one here. I know it's kind of hard to see. There's minimal lighting, but up in the corner, there's the location or the light fixtures. They're mainly used to light boulders and other architectural features on the house. I can tell you what page that is in
Looks like,
A 1.01.
A 1.01.
thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, if the applicant is here, please identify yourself. You have 10 minutes to make a presentation.
Gil, come on
There's
up to the
a
podium here.
microphone over there.
Hi, good afternoon. I won't take long. Thank you for the opportunity to present the project. This house has been conditioned, as very well described by Glenn, by two main factors. The first one is there's a water course that is protected, and we needed to work around it and float the house over it in several instances. The second one is the lot is heavily sloped from the west side to the east side. There's around a 15-foot grade difference, and we had to terrace the house down to be able to first comply with the standards and second maintain a low profile shape that we wanted to see from the elevation. The composition has been designed to appear as horizontal as possible. The feature that you previously mentioned is the glass feature that is on the bottom of that corridor that connects the living room, the hallway, with the 3 bedrooms that are on the northeast wing. That's been placed there to accentuate this horizontality that we wanted to see from the street elevation. Something that I wanted to add is that all the landscape has been tried to be preserved. We're glorifying the boulders and local vegetation as much as we can. We've proposed a plant list. Will be compliant with the landscape regulations, and all materials have been decided to be maintenance-free. If you see that there's a little bit of wood on this facade, exposed facade, that wood is a thermally modified Akoya that we've used in previous projects in the desert, and we've been very successful with it. We have years of experience with it, and it's behaved really well under the heat, sun, and rain. Other features are the main request that the client had for us is that the pool was located on the southeast portion of the lot. So that's what created the main complexity with bridging the house over this water course. We've been able to integrate that pool without modifying the contours around it heavily. And then as for these underground rooms, there's 2 of them. Once we had this bridge structure designed to accommodate the engineering department's comments. Those 2 air chambers appeared as good opportunities to hide equipment that would be noisy or not pleasantly visible from adjacent lots. So there's mainly the pool equipment is inside that pool equipment room, and then the heat pumps. Those are outdoor condensers are located are attached laterally to the facade and would have enough clearance to be able to comply with the manufacturer standards for the air requirements on that location.
Before we go any further, please tell me your name.
Guillermo or
Guillermo,
or Gil, yeah.
Or Gil?
Gil, yeah, if it's
Okay,
easier.
thank you. Any questions of the applicant from the committee? I know, Robert?
Okay, so can you, oh, sorry. My mic's on now. Can you walk me through the grading and the clearance as you go into the equipment and storage areas? It seems to me that bedroom number 1, the floor elevation is about 898. And can you tell me what the grade is underneath that you have the 7-foot clearance?
Yeah, the worst case scenario, we've designed it to be 7 feet. So it would be 891 probably. There is just right there on the axis. there's a step almost right away as you come in, as the building goes up 4 feet. The soffit is at 901. If you zoom into the plan, you would be able to see those. I have it open here.
Yeah, I can't zoom in, unfortunately,
Okay, that's no
but I
problem.
can go back to,
I'll just open it on my file. Sorry. So we've. I think I can zoom in better this way. Thank you.
I think Robert's question came because on sheet A 2.0, it shows a grade line of 893 and the roof at 897, so that would be just 4 feet of clearance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that happens further into the creek, right?
No,
Is it at the beginning?
the 893 is right at the column, the pier, the concrete support column. So
Yeah.
literally, somebody would have to be
Ah,
bent
yes.
over, walking across the entire length of bedroom 1 to get in.
But that's that's the existing contour. It's been modified and pushed in, I think, and then, yeah, we would be able to modify those contours slightly to be able to accommodate a better access. I don't know what your requirements would be for that height, but we would be able to adapt them.
Well, I think just from a practical point of view, you want a minimum of 7 feet clear all
7
the
feet.
way to get in there.
Until you reach the door. Okay.
Well, building code requires 7 feet in any space in a house.
Yeah.
In enclosed spaces or also crawl spaces under the buildings? Because we've seen crawl spaces in the past that are under 7 feet as long as it's not an enclosed space.
Not in crawl spaces, but I don't think the gas company's gonna let their guy crawl in on his knees to read the gas meter.
And yes, okay. Well, right where the gas meter is, the soffit steps up, but you're right. That should be modified slightly to. So when you're in front of the gas meter, your roof's been already stepped out 4 feet.
Right.
But it's true that the access to that location is going to probably lower. It's going to be around 5 feet, even the modified.
I think you may want to revisit that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think the utility companies are going to accept that kind of access to see their meters or service their meters. The next question is fencing around the pool. Do you have something in plan for that?
Well, we would our owner would be able to put a 4-foot fence around the pool. We haven't provided any physical 4-foot barrier for the pool. We've seen that other projects didn't have this fencing. I assume that since this is inside the HOA, that would be transferred to the HOA, the requirements for fencing.
I think it's a county issue, though.
Account issue.
Yeah.
So we've seen some of the other projects have temporary fencing around pools. I know it's a problem that some of the houses have.
Yeah, it looks like crap.
Yeah, no, we don't like it, and we don't like it, and that's why we didn't include it in our plans. But if it were to be included, we'd have to design a fencing from scratch.
Well, I think it's a liability issue too. I mean, that rule is there to protect children mostly, and I think your client would be foolish not to do it. Rick from engineering?
Yeah, Chair, Commissioners, thank you. There is a couple of houses up there where one of them, it's a very dark stucco colored house, and that pool had a temporary like fabric fence going around almost the entire property. That's since been removed, and they do now have a metal vertical fence in place where the fence was, and I think it was an oversight at the time that it was approved, and since then they've had to put it in. And there's only one other house up there, I believe, where they do not have some kind of a barrier up there, and they have a temporary one where it goes into some slots, but for the most part, they are all putting them in at some point. But I think it was something that some of us weren't paying attention to at the time that they were approved, because there's only been a few houses that have been completed, so they've since then gone back and they are putting them in.
Right.
So.
It's just, we were basing ourselves on the two projects that we saw built at the time. That black house that is mentioned didn't have a fence. It was, and then the other one is the one across the street that didn't have a fence either when we visited. So we assumed that those requirements had been waived for this HOA, because we have projects and other HOAs that do not have pool barriers and are still accepted if they're adjacent to a golf course or are within the HOA gated areas.
And then how does the pool get serviced? It doesn't seem on the site plan that there's any clear path from the street to the actual pool for pool service to clean it or maintain it.
Well, yeah, you could walk around the house, or you could access. You could always access around the house and reach the pool from both sides. Would you like to see a permanent sort of like path to access
Well,
these?
I think from a practical point of view, you may want to provide something, rather than having them climb over rocks and boulders and, whatever natural ground cover there is.
Yes. So it's just we were trying to preserve as much of a natural look as possible.
Yeah, I understand.
And we've walked around those boulders and it's not ideal, but I see that the proximity of the contours in these areas is not that high, so it wouldn't be too steep a climb. We've walked that many times, but if your suggestion is to add this path, we would have no problem with that.
Okay. And then the last question I have is where you're going to store trash. I don't see any accommodation for that either.
Yeah, it would be stored inside the garage.
In the garage?
Next to the golf cart parking lot. The garage is a 2.5 car, so that location will have storage for the trash.
Okay. I think that's all I have now. Thank you.
Any other questions? Tom?
Hi, Gil.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I have a couple questions, and I guess it's kind of relating the grading plan to the landscape plan. And because when you look at the grading plan, it does show the contours, and there's about 3 areas, maybe 4 areas of retention. So when I look at that and then the landscape plan, I feel that the landscape plan is underdeveloped in response, to the amount of grading that probably will actually occur based on these contours. I think it'd be great to preserve the boulders, in place, and this might not affect it, but it almost, the landscape plan needs to be overlaid on this grading plan and make sure the retention basins and the slopes. The other item was, it says the surface level for the pool is at 901.5, but it shows the corners of the pool at 904.5. So I'm just wondering if that's a mislabel, because you're calling for an infinity edge and it's showing in the rendering that way, but this would put, the water level 3.
I think it's a mislabel, because on the architectural plans, it's called out at 904.5.
Is it? Okay. So, yeah, this is on the grading plan. You might have them check that.
Okay, yeah. It's just the pool design was not easy to understand for our engineer. That's we had several iterations, and we might have missed these labels.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And I think those were the only questions I had for the architect.
Thank you. Any other questions? I kind of think there's a lot of stuff missing from the plans. There's a lot of things that aren't probably totally worked out, and a lot of issues that are pretty significant. As an example, if you just look at the section that cuts right through that hallway in front of the section on sheet 4.01. So you've got the corridor cantilevered out 8 feet from its supporting wall. Then you've got that slot of glass, but there's nothing showing how the concrete wall above the glass is supported.
Well, yeah, the concrete wall is wide enough to be able to accommodate columns, and those.
So then the columns are not shown yet.
Well, we haven't gone through the structural design yet.
Because what'll happen is that beautiful horizontal aspect of the glass is gonna be cut up now by columns at every 10 feet or so.
Yeah, but the columns would be offset inside, so that you wouldn't be able to see them. You would have the glass in front from the outside.
Okay.
And the good thing is that when you're inside, you don't mind that much because that's at foot level. So you're not going to appreciate the horizontality the same way as you do from the outside.
And then you don't, there's a number of spots where I think you need to, you're missing a lot of material callouts. We can't tell what the finishes are. Again, looking at that cantilevered, what is on the bottom of that? Are we seeing
In the
exposed metal decking that's supporting the concrete? Are we seeing board-formed concrete? Are we seeing plaster? Because all of those things you're gonna be able to look up at.
Yeah, that's all exposed concrete.
So it needs to be called out on the drawings. And as you look at these sections on 4.01, none of the building heights are called out. So I can see that the house is stepping down, but I can't really get a feel for the relation of the height differences between the different things. And that just kind of follows through the plans, like on the exterior elevations, there's symbols for what the materials are, but there's no legend for what the materials are. And so we're just kind of guessing.
I'm sorry. I did. That is. Okay, so first, for the elevations and heights, we have a typical height established on the side of each elevation and section that shows every elevation and every height to the left of the elevations and sections. For the materials, those should show there. There's a material board list that should specify what is what, but
the numbers on the material board don't correspond with the numbers on the elevations.
so with that should be adapted.
And then as I look at the floor plan on 1.01, at the entry coming in from across the yard, there's several different sets of steps and lots of lines that might indicate walls, might indicate planters, might indicate a curb at ground level, a 3-foot-high wall adjacent. It's uncertain. And then the walkway continues to the left of the garage out in front of the driveway, but it looks like that walkway might be high enough from the adjacent grade that it would need a guardrail. And I'm not saying it has to have one, but I'm just saying that needs to be, I think, resolved more so that there's a better understanding of how all that works.
We tried to detail that further on the slab openings plan. It's on A204, and that's where we try to identify where these top of slab elevations are. That corner where you yes, obviously you have more than 30 inches in grade difference, and you would require a guardrail has been. There is a water feature that has been added in that location so that you don't have to have a need for this guardrail. And then you see that this top of slab drops 18 inches on that location, and it goes around the corner to prevent anyone from getting close to the grade difference where you would require a guardrail.
And then on the roof plan, it does not indicate what the roofing material is, and it doesn't indicate how the roof is drained.
Well, so we had we're showing just arrows that show the 2% sloping toward the side gutters.
So it doesn't show a gutter detail then if you're having gutters on the roofs?
Yeah,
So you can see my frustration is that there's so many things that are missing that you can describe, but we really need to have them on the drawings. And so I think that there needs to be more work done to make these drawings more complete. The retention ponds are not shown on the landscaping plan, again, so we don't know how the boulder work relates to those ponds and landscaping that might happen with them. There's some uncertainty. If I look at your plan on page 2.01, there's a hatch mark shown outside the building that might be the overhang or might be the decking. I don't know which it is. And then on that same plan, there's something, a wooden screen of some sort possibly in front of the kitchen and in front of the master bathroom and over at bedroom 1. And it looks to me like those are like 4x12s that are exposed with no top to them, but I don't know. So I think those sorts of things, the details need to be more specific.
Yeah, we typically, what we typically do is when we have a planning review or like we're doing now, our experience has been we usually try to develop up to the planning stage, and all these details are further developed in the construction documentation set. When we're looking at the structure, we're looking at all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing details. All these connections need to be further detailed. There's hundreds of hours of work that are still not there, but we typically don't do any of that until we have a clear approval as to is the design compliant and approvable by the city. We've tried to provide renders to clearly show where the materials are. We provided 3 of those renders that we hoped would offer a lot of insight as to how this building is going to look. And then we detailed the site elevations and the building elevations and the 2 sections that were required to be shown on your checklists. But all these connection details, that per our experience working with planning reviews before, we've never had to develop a project that up to that standard for this preliminary design approval phase. It's usually done for the construction documents stage, which is a totally different kind of animal, and we're definitely not there with this presentation.
Well, we certainly don't expect to see working drawing level details, but I think you need to have a good working understanding of the structure to know, can the floor really be just 12 inches thick? Are we going to have some exposed beams? All those materials on the outside, how they come together. So I think what this committee is used to seeing is a presentation that's somewhere between this being called a preliminary presentation and something that's more complete but is not to the point that it's construction drawings yet, but something that shows us that the house works, that the roof works, that the grades work, that the ceiling heights work, that the drainage works, and what's the finished product made of.
It's just we're usually able to navigate that during the construction documents phase, and we're able to provide this further detail that is reviewed again by the planning department. So if we get conditions of approval that have to be looked at when we further develop the drawings, usually the planner would look at those and see that all your conditions have been met. And if you require further detail, we would provide. We don't think we have provided anything that wouldn't be considered legal, other than the spot you mentioned where we don't have access for the utility companies. And there's many ways to resolve that. We're only trying to hide these ugly meters from our neighbors, since we cannot provide any hedging or fencing to hide these things. So we will, of course, develop the plans to that stage, but it's just our client typically would want to have a certain certainty before he spends whatever he needs to spend for this next phase, in which we involve all the other engineers that need to be involved and our own production team.
Any other comments from the committee or questions for the applicant, I mean? No? Okay. Thank you, Gio. At this point is the time that the public can make comments on this particular item. Do we have anybody in the waiting room that wanted to comment on this agenda item?
I see no one with their hand raised.
Okay, thank you. So now we're time for committee discussion. Comments from the committee members? Robert?
Well, I think it's a nice-looking project. I think it's got great potential, but I think, as we all pointed out, there's a number of issues that seem unresolved. So I don't think I can approve it as submitted.
Thank you. Other comments?
Tom
Dosey?
Yep. Again, I think site planning wise and massing and so forth, it's approvable. I would like to see when it comes back, a more detailed landscape plan that relates to the grading plan. And then also an increase in the size of the trees that are proposed. The major trees should be between 36 and 48-inch box versus 24-inch. And then also on the landscape lighting, there's no wattage called out for the landscape lights, so they need to, yeah, and the color temperature for the LEDs. So again, it's that next level of detail, I think.
Tom, I have a question for you. What do you think about the olive trees that are shown here? Do you think they're appropriate?
You know, I went back and it looked like the Palisades approved them. I was surprised. And also the Melaleuca tree as well. Because normally we'll see Palo Verdes, but I think if it's approved by the HOA and, you know, or you might want to mix it up between some olive trees and Palo Verde, you know, to give it more of a native look. You know, I also made a note that most of the plants shown are accent plants. And so if the goal is to renaturalize it in a desert format, there's quite a few plants that could be added to that list that will give you a natural desert type effect.
Well, I would say that the Melaleuca, I think, I like that choice because it's such a sculptural tree, and that planter that it's sitting in where it goes through the architecture, I think that's
As a feature.
nice. I think the olive trees to me just seem a little weak, especially because they're just called out as standards, not multi-trunk.
Right, but that was the other note I had. Yeah, they should be multi-trunk.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments from the committee?
I concur with what you've been saying. I think in terms of the landscape, the street facade is a little light. I understand you're trying to really accentuate the architecture, and it's a good-looking building, but it, based on what you've shown us, it just feels a little thin.
Gail, you have to come to the mic.
Material proposed for the facade is not white stucco. The white stucco, the stucco is the second option and would be a limestone finish by Le Havre. But the first option would be either an exposed concrete with an earth, with a limestone finish color, or a large format stone that has it's called the Schilling look. It looks like the limestone, but it's not as porous and as maintenance intensive as the limestone.
Thank you.
Steve, anything?
No, I concur with the rest of the comments. I think you do really need to look at the pool security around the pool, because that is, to my knowledge, HOAs can't override county or state code in terms of access to a pool by a neighbor. So I think you need to really look at that and make sure you incorporate something in that works with the landscaping.
Thank you. I agree with Robert's comment that we don't have enough finished details here to really be able to vote on it, but I will tell you, this is a beautiful project and it's going to be approved. God is in the details, so we just are more interested in what you just said. It could be plaster, it could be a type of limestone, it could be tiles. That's three totally different characters to the front of the house. So if we could just have a more finite list of materials and description and working out of the details, especially those wooden screens. I'm really curious to know how big they are. Do they touch the glass? Can you wash the glass? Do they move away from the glass?
We're not worried about providing more detail. We just would appreciate having more clarity as to, can we get into the structural design now? Like, is the main form of the building approvable? We're compliant with every single line of the planning code. Are we able to then go ahead and start to detail these white flange beams to see what our worst case scenario is, to see our final depth of cantilever? Like, we need to do all these things before we can actually go ahead and start detailing, right? And that like the first question is drainage. Drainage is directly related to the structure, so we cannot design the drainage before we design the structure, it needs to happen at the same time. Same with mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So if we have a conditional approval for the main mass of the building, when we can go into the structural design, we could come back when we have been working on everything at the same time. When we have to freeze all, it's a really important part, when you have to freeze all this investment in the second part of the project, which is structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, until we get an approval from planning, but planning is requesting further detail, we find ourselves in this loop. We're just trying to move forward with these consultants that we have a relationship with and can help us detail to probably to the extent that you're looking for.
Thank you. I have a question for the planning director. I don't know that we've done this before, but is it an option that we could approve the basic design and structure of the house, but require that it come back with finished details, not to the staff, but to the committee, so that we all have a chance to really review how it all finishes out?
Right, one option would be a subcommittee, but I do think that there is a way that you could approve it on the condition that it return. The only thing is it wouldn't be able to be for a decision point. I mean, essentially you would have to issue a decision with a condition that the details of the materials return more for information. So I'm not really sure how we would structure sort of a conditional approval where you would then get additional opportunity to shape the project.
Well, I guess I would ask then, could the condition be that it returns for review and approval of the materials, but it returns to us, not returns to staff?
I suppose in theory that could work. I'm going to confer with my colleagues here who've had more experience with you all than I have.
What does the committee think of that?
But I think there's more issues than just the materials.
Well, I'm detailed, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that, I mean, it's also access, you know, and the fencing, and, you know, there's a variety of things. So I think it really needs to come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of the comments really were regarding the layout of the site planning and so forth, but just additional information.
Well, and I think what Robert is asking for is things that are legal issues, but also that are significant, because just the look of a pool fence in a neighborhood like that where there are no property line fences, so it's also visible, it is part of the architecture.
Yeah.
And there is a slope going down to the pool on the one side there too, so.
One way that you might approach this that might give the applicant some certainty is in your motion, you know, perhaps give some support to the overall site plan and layout, and then go into the details that, you know, the information that you're directing them to return with, which might give them the sort of assurance that they're looking for, that the, you know, the bones and basics of it, you know, may be good enough for them to proceed to the next point of expenditure, but with a clear understanding of what they're coming back with.
Well, let's give it a shot then. Robert, can you make a motion?
Well, the conditions, I think the overall architecture and design of the project and the way it fits the site are all great. The issues I think that exist are landscaping in relation to retention, access to the utilities and the storage rooms below the house, fencing around the pool, the materials on the house. What am I missing?
Details of the materials.
Details of materials. So.
Walkway to the pool also.
Yeah, well, that was,
Yeah,
yes, access to the
access
pool and the equipment, so.
So just to be clear, you are suggesting that this item be continued.
I am.
We are saying in that we are very accepting of the building and the basic direction of this, but we need to have the specifics more defined.
I agree.
Okay. Do we have a second to that?
One question, would solar be a part of that when it comes back to
Well,
see how they're
I
handling
think they
it?
show solar on the roof, and it's shown as flat.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
PV01, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So-
I'll second the motion.
Second by Mr. Dosey. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Gio, I think it's a great-looking
Yeah,
project.
beautiful,
It's gonna
really
be
beautiful.
nice.
Thank you.
Design.
Thank you. You just need more
who made the
experience
second?
working
I'm
with
sorry.
With your committee.
Tom Dosey.
Oh, Tom.
Okay, thank you. So that is our last agenda item. Are there any just general comments from committee members? Staff, do you have any comments for us?
Sure, a couple items from me, and then we'll see if Ken have any. The first is I just wanted to talk about recruitment to the Architectural Review Committee. I know a number of you have graciously continued to sit with us despite your terms technically expiring on paper, and there are a few reasons for that. Obviously, we've had a transition of city managers, we've had a transition to a new city council, and so we are now in the process, the city clerk is in the process of doing recruitment for the various boards and commissions for the city. And in fact, they are in the process of scheduling interviews, as I understand it, for the Planning Commission later this month. And the idea is that they will fill the vacancies and get the Planning Commission sort of back up to where it needs to be for its membership by the end of the month. And that will then allow us to proceed with our process this summer to get that resolved, because I think a couple of you have terms that have expired. So we will reach out to all of you when we have a little more information about that in the next couple of weeks about that process and opening reapplications where we need to. So stay tuned on that. But thank you again to those of you that continue to sit despite your terms having expired. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is this, the idea of application volume. I know we've had a couple of meetings canceled, and we have some relatively light agendas. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is we rolled out our online application system, EnterGov, earlier in May, and so that's going relatively smoothly. We're working out some of the kinks with that, but in order to get us there, it was really a tremendous push late last year into early this year with everyone, planning, building, engineering, and all the other departments that are engaged in that. And so I think that we had to prioritize that perhaps over the processing of some applications. So I think we're seeing a bit of a lag coming out of that. At the same time, obviously, the economic uncertainty, I think, means that, well, I wouldn't say we've necessarily seen a big measurable decrease in the volume of our applications. What I think we are seeing is not the same turnaround that we were seeing, I think, when people were a little bit more eager to get their projects approved and through the system. So, where we might be going back with comments, they may be taking longer to get, new materials or revised materials back to us. We're seeing things moving a little bit slower, I think, just as people are kind of a little more cautious about running out the gate. So those are the two updates that I had, and I can take any questions and see if Ken has anything he wants to add.
I have no other comments.
Is there a schedule for the summer, or just as needed basis, or is there 1 month where we'll not be here?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we are dark in August. So I know this month we're a little off schedule, so our next meeting would have been on the day that Juneteenth is observed. So we will be the following week in this room again because we're off schedule. We have 2 meetings in July on our regular schedule. Actually, that's not true. I think we were supposed to have a meeting on July 3rd, and that felt like not a great day to have a meeting in between holidays or on the Monday before a holiday. So I think we have 1 meeting in July, the second meeting we will have, and then we will be dark in August. Rick just reminded me of something that we would like to set up. I think, because we find this kind of conversation on the Palisades homes specifically happening a lot, where there's a lot of back and forth. The applicant community isn't always sure of how to, undertake designing a project in what is a fairly complicated area. And because we often see going through this process, getting the feedback from you, from staff, and when it comes to actually coming in at the time of building permit, we hear, well, that's expensive, and they've kind of reevaluated things as they learn the cost of doing some of this work. And so I think it would be helpful, at Rick's suggestion, if we could arrange perhaps some site visits with all of you, just to kind of go through the community, see what's actually getting built on the ground as it compares to what you all saw and what you've approved, so we can kind of see where those pinch points are, so that we're more aware of it, both, in our process behind the scenes before it comes to you, but then also in your decision-making process, so you kind of know how that evolution is occurring and can be mindful of it in your decision-making process. So if you all are open to that, I think we'll reach out and start to schedule schedule that over the next few weeks or so, just to get all of your input and also make sure you're aware of what we're seeing as these things are getting constructed.
Chris, can we just leave our used things here?